Hi guys, so welcome. This week I'm going to be doing something a little bit different because so many of you have contacted me asking me loads of questions about the way I live, how I live close to nature, what I do, what my house looks like, what my garden looks like, what I'm growing. So I thought I would just take you on a tour. So we live here in 10 acres of land. It's about half and half woodland at the moment, but the other half in the front field, which you'll see shortly, we've already planted over 1,000 trees. The idea is to get it mainly woodland with just clearings for growing food in. And within those areas, there will also be forest gardens, so even that will have a bit of a forest feel about it. And we got permission to be here through a Welsh policy. So here where I live in the UK, in West Wales, there's a policy that's just in Wales only called the One Planet Development, and it allows you to live on the land as long as you tie your whole life in with the land. So in a nutshell, what we have to do is prove that we can be self-sufficient, and whatever we can't be self-sufficient for our basic needs, for things such as communication needs, travel needs and food needs, then we need to be able to grow on the land. So what that means is we need to have a land-based business. And we need to create a house, create our business and be up to 100% in all our targets that we've set ourselves in the management plan we've created in the first 5 years. So we are, I think, in year 3.5. So we're over halfway and we're hitting some and need to push a bit further than others. But we just look around and we're amazed at where we live and amazed at what we've managed to achieve with just the two of us. We have had volunteers sporadically, but mainly it has just been the two of us and not a lot of money because we did start out this way of life originally thinking that we were looking for a cottage with a small bit of land when we were both working full time. But to cut a long story short, we decided to shake up our life and we ended up, from the small deposit that we'd created to get a mortgage, we bought this land, but we didn't just use that because we didn't have enough money. So we used that small deposit for a land mortgage. So we got a land mortgage for this land. And then when we got planning, we managed to change it to a residential mortgage with the Ecology Building Society to build this house. And that is where we're at the moment. So we're at a really exciting stage. We're just about to move into our house, which you'll hear about as I show you around. And the garden has been set up. We're starting to set up our businesses. And yeah, it's amazing. It's hard work. There's a lot of blood, sweat and tears involved. I know people that look at it sometimes and think, oh, you're living the good life. But you realise whatever life you live comes with its joys and bonuses. But also, you know, there's also, I don't like to use the word negative because that's not me, but it comes with its tough side. And within those tough sides, there's a lot of lessons. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take you on a tour, show you around. And yeah, welcome to my life. Hey guys, welcome to Ysbryd y Coed. Come on in. So you've just entered what I call the circle of life. And the reason I call it that is because it's in a circular shape and it's where we grow in all our food. So it beautifully shows that circle of life and death. Many of my friends take the mick and say start singing the Circle of Life song from The Lion King, but I don't care because I love it. And I love that each section has a name. So welcome to the Circle of Life. Just behind me there, we have the start of our orchard and nuttery area. So it's been great to experiment over the last couple of years to see what trees are doing great and what trees aren't doing so great. But each year it's different. This year we were faced with very late frosts and quite a wet winter. Now we've got, just behind me, I've got two walnut trees. Now they haven't done so well so far, but it may be they're just finding their feet. We did have to replace one of them because it got a bit of rot in its foot. So I kind of built more of a mound and added more organic material and more drainage when I replanted the one. We've also got some pear trees. Now we had loads and loads of blossom on the pear trees this year for the first year, but the frost got it all. We've got 4 apple trees so far. We've got 2 hazelnuts. We've got some autumn olive. I've also got a little patch of rhubarb, some sweet chestnut trees right at the top. And we've also got some plum trees and some hazelnut trees. So it's very much in its infancy, as you can see, and I'll take you for a quick wander round. But it's great to start to build that forest garden feel. So this area is more of our own. And what we're going to be developing to the right of me this winter is our more commercial forest garden area. So we're going to be planting apples, plums, green gages, things that I think would do better in this climate, looking at the traditional Welsh varieties. And we're going to be planting those with the intention of selling it. So come on in with me and I'll show you around the orchard. So we're at the centre of the circle of life, and you may have noticed a little something behind me. This is our standing stone. When we bought the land, there was a stone in the stream. We've got a stream going down the side of our land, and there was a stone just sat there. And it looked like a person lying, sleeping. And everyone that came here was saying, you have to raise that. It's the same stone, it's blue stone, which is the same stone as they got just up the hills in the Preseli's for Stonehenge. So maybe, in my head, it's one they left behind. But it definitely had that feeling that it needed to be standing up. So we raised some money, the community helped us raise some money to get the specialists in to raise it. And we done it as a beautiful community day. We had people drumming, we had people singing and chanting, and people helped lifting, putting the wooden rods under it as we were lifting it more. And it was a combination of traditional methods with machinery. And it was an absolutely great day, and it really set the stage for the circle of life, because this may sound woo-woo, but my idea was the energy of that stone in the middle will radiate the energy out to our food. And we didn't know how big it was going to be until we got it out of the stream, because there was only about a third of it showing, and we had no idea that it was going to be this big. And amazingly, I'm not sure if you can make out there, not sure which way it will be with the camera. I'm quite sure, to be honest, you can probably see over me. There's actually a skull on the one side, there's eyes, a nose. So it adds that circle of life and death, because the one side looks like a skull and the other side looks like 2 people hugging each other, creating life. So it's great that it has those different sides, and it just happened. So let me show you around the rest of the circle of life. My most favourite part, the part I enjoy every single moment of every single day, the veg garden. Let's go there next. So welcome to our veg garden. I'm going to take you through the different sections, and we're coming into the end of summer now, so some things are looking a bit more pitiful and the greens are starting to really get into their own. So behind me here is my experimental corn bed. So I've got about 200, 300 corn plants in there, and I experimented with different sections. I split the section into 4. We basically put cardboard on the ground and a pile of compost on top. We were really blessed when we got this land. We purchased 10 acres of land that used to be used for breeding Welsh mountain ponies. So there was a huge pile of about 10-year-old rotted down horse manure. Win-win, because we haven't had to bring in any compost. So we put the compost on top of the cardboard and simply planted straight into that. So what have I got here? Well, I've got 4 sections. The back 2 sections are just simply corn planted, I think it was about 45 centimetres apart. And interestingly, the 2 sides grew totally different. So there was obviously something either different about the ground, about the moisture. There was something different going on. And then the front sections, this section right behind me, done the 3 sisters. In fact, the 2 front sections have done the 3 sisters, but experimenting with different planting distances. So this one I created mounds. I can't remember the sizes off the top of my head. I got it all written down in my gardening book. I created mounds, and in the middle of the mound at north, south, east and west I put a cone plant. And then in the next mound I put a squash plant and went along like that. And then once the cone was about maybe 6 inches, I then planted some beans. Now the beans I have planted in here are drying beans, so I can just leave them do their thing and not have to disturb them trying to harvest them. I can wait till the end of the season. But to be honest, we've had such a wet summer. You wouldn't think it today, but we've had such a wet summer. I might not have to wait until they dried out, because they might go rotten before they dried out. So I'll be getting those in probably as soon as they are at the stage where they can be dried out. I've also planted sunflowers at the north point and at the southwesterly point, more so at the southwesterly point where the winds come in. I've chose the 2 areas because traditionally the Native Americans would plant the 3 sisters, the cone, which was supported for the bean to wrap around, and the ground underneath, which is normally bare because the sweet cone doesn't go around on the ground. That's where the squashes would come in, and they would always plant sunflowers, not always, but a lot of it when I was looking into it, they'd plant sunflowers in the north for the wind barrier breaking. But to be honest, here in this area we get a lot of southwesterly, so I also planted them in that area as well. Plus, you can never have too many sunflowers, let's be fair. So to the side of it, the other experiment I done was again with the 3 sisters, but I done double the planting distance here. And that hasn't worked too good. Again, it was on the same side as the top part of the experiment, and that didn't work so good. So it may be something to do with the soil, but also the squash has become so crazy that it's pulled some of the sweet cone down. And because it's not as close to the other sweet cone, it has been pulled down in quite many places. But to be honest, it's still growing, it's still got cobs on there, and I've just put some bamboo canes amongst it, which you might be able to see because we've had some really vicious winds recently. Now in front of it here, I've got the start of my strawberry beds. So I've got different strawberries. I've got early, mid-season, late, and the ones that kind of grow all year. I can't remember, begins with a P. Knowing me, I'd get the word wrong anyway. But perpetual, is it? I don't know. I'm not even going to try and guess. I've got it written down again, a label somewhere. Those of you that watch my channel and follow me know that I'm not great with words, and I'd probably make it up and say it wrong anyway. Anyway, back to the strawberries. So what we've done here, I didn't want to use straw because it's really hard to get organic straw, and you can have lots and lots of chemicals hiding away in the straw. So I got some local hay that's grown to organic standards and simply just ripped it apart, threw some compost in and put the strawberry runners in. And you can see, well, you might not be able to see there, but there's still strawberries waiting to go red, and there's still some red strawberries down there. Now this has broken down quite a lot, more so than I was expecting to, I think because we've had so much rain. Now the other one downside is mice have been living in it, and it has attracted a lot of slugs. It's been really interesting actually growing in the veg garden this year, because I've been experimenting with lots of different methods to know what's good for this area. And it is a sluggy area, and it's been a slug year. It has been a bit like Slug-ageddon in the garden. So I don't know whether I do this again, but also it has been really good. The strawberries have just excelled on the nutrients in that hay. So I've got loads of runners to plant up, and I'll be probably tripling this at least next year. And this is going to be a commercial strawberry bed. So I'll keep posting these videos as the years go on, and you'll see how it develops. So let's go and have a look at the beds. So this is the beginning of where I've been experimenting with raised beds, and very much like the hay beds down there, it has its pluses and its minuses. So this bed here is just mainly full of kale, and there's some purple sprouting broccoli at the end. And then this bed here has been our salad bed and spinach bed. Now loads of things I've been saving for seed where possible. Again, it's been a bit hit and miss because of the damp weather, so I've saved twice the amount, I think, because I'm not sure the germination rate is going to be great, because I think some of it might have gone mouldy before I managed to get it in. But I've been saving the seed because with COVID going on, seed sales have gone absolutely bonkers. Plus, it's that extra level of self-sufficiency. But I always find when I've saved seed in the past, it does so much better because it starts to get to know you and get to know your climate. So I have been planting crazy here because the slugs have been going crazy, but I'm really pleased with the level the kale is at now, because my main thing with kale is get it to a level where it will keep you going throughout the winter, because my goal for this year was to be self-sufficient in greens, and so far we have totally been self-sufficient in greens, and I plan to keep it going throughout the winter. So these beds, again, everything from the land. We've got, which I'll be showing you later, we've got some woodlands back there, and there's loads of spruce trees. So we were cutting down some spruce trees, so these were used for the edges. The spruce trees, the tops and all the brash was wood chipped, and that's what we've got on top. And the compost, again, like I said earlier, came from the land. Now, I'm not sure whether it's because it's new ground or because it's been a very wet year, but the slugs absolutely love this. Now, I was told it will stop the weeds and stop the slugs. I would love to know in the comments if you guys have experimented with this and how it has gone for you. Because the slugs, when this mulch is wet, love it. They hide in it. And it's really hard, if I come out at dusk or dawn to slug hunt, it's really hard to spot the slugs amongst the mulch. Particularly those ones that are like leopard print ones. But what I've been doing is building little slug traps. So I'm eating grapefruit, which obviously I haven't grown. But I work in a organic fruit and veg shop, and if I can get grapefruit there, then I get some grapefruit. And you might see the upside down skins because that gathers the slugs really, really well, and I can just come down at night and scoop them up, so it's a lot quicker than going around and scooping them off the plants. But I have been doing that religiously as well, and I'm experimenting with other slug traps. So watch this space and I'll let you know what works. So other things. The bed's just behind, you can probably just make out in the camera there, you probably see the carpet and nasturtiums. So let's go up there and I can show you what we've got growing up that end. So we further up the veg garden now, and I've got my cabbages in this bed. I've got celery, but I think it's only going to be used as celery leaf because the story goes I planted about 110 celery plants out because we love juicing celery. And I was slug checking every night, but do you know what? I was tired and I totally forgot I planted them out and the slugs got the lot. But I didn't give up. I planted some more and they're about this high now. I'm not sure if you can tell in the camera. So they'd be good for celery leaf because last year we had such a mild winter. I kept celery leaf going all year outside. And then at the back we got some Brussels sprouts, and then I've got some parsnips and carrots. Now you might see the mushroom crates, the blue crates, tumbling about at the top there. And the reason they are there is because we had probably a cat, I think it was, coming down in the garden and scratching up the bare earth where I planted the carrots. And I got those from work, so it was great to reuse them and to just put them on top. And as the carrots have grown, they've simply pushed them off, so it's been fine, totally fine. And then in this bed here, I've got this delicious carpet, and it is delicious because I love eating them. Delicious carpet of nasturtiums. Look at that colour, it's absolutely amazing. The nasturtiums just self-seeded from last year, and I love that because they're like, I want to grow here, and they just come up. I've got some red perilla, some coriander, some chives, some dill, and then I've got the next load of lettuce coming on there, so that should be ready in a couple of weeks, and that will see us through then until I plant things like winter marvel that will see us through the winter. Because I haven't got any polytunnels here yet, that's the plan for next spring. But last winter I managed to keep us in lettuce by growing winter marvel. It was great, and because we had such a mild winter it kept going right up until the frost we had, which I think, when was it? It was around April time possibly. It was definitely March time, April time, and we had lettuce all that time. So winter marvel is a great one to go for. So let's go to the last little set of beds right at the top. So this is the top set of raised beds that we've done, and this has been developing as the summer's gone on, as it does. So down the bottom I've had my peas and I had lots of radishes and I've got some parsnip around the place. I mainly grew mangy-tout, I call them mangy-touts, and sugar snap peas, because it just always feels like such a waste when you have to shell the peas. And they never end up making it to the table because you just end up eating them. So I think, well, why not just grow the ones that you can eat anyway? So my mangy-touts and sugar snaps were down there. And then here I've got my beans on the wigwams. Again, we've just been using what was around the place. So the trees that we had to coppice in the winter, we kept the poles and used them for the peas, poles for the hazels. And these were just longer bits of wood, all different varieties. So we've got some French beans here, runner beans, and then we've got leeks growing in between. And around there, the self-seeded borage, which is an absolute orchestra of bees. And it just makes my heart sing and my face smile with delight every time I come down here and see those. So if you've got room for a borage plant, I really recommend that you have one. The bed behind has a couple of very slug-eaten cauliflowers and one squash left. That was the slug-ageddon bed, more so than the celery, because the slugs got 6 courgette plants, and I think I planted 6 squash plants and 1 survived. But hey, that's the way the cookie crumbles in the garden, doesn't it? So what I've decided next year, I am going to be turning these beds into soft fruit and putting some mushrooms in with the wood chip and probably some herbs and some alpine strawberries at the bottom to layer it up, stack layer it. And then I'm not sure if you noticed the recently cultivated patch of earth as we were going round. That is just getting ready for next year, and there's some green manure has been planted in there that are about this big, so you wouldn't even see on the camera. I've put some mustard in there, and the reason I've used mustard is because when we harvested our garlic, there was little worms in. And I thought, garlic, isn't that supposed to be good to fight against worms? Isn't it supposed to be anti-parasitic? But these were what was called wire worms from the click beetle. So anything, you particularly get them in freshly dug ground, because they like grass areas. So we probably got a lot of them because of that. But the leeks and everything has been fine. There was a slight bit of damage on the potatoes, and to be honest, the garlic had damage, but there was no worms inside. So that is just going to be a kind of trial and error. But going back to the mustard, I get a bit sidetracked because I love this area so much. But the mustard, the wire worm, absolutely love mustard. So what the mustard will do is it'll draw them in, but then they'll gorge on the mustard and hopefully turn into beetles and bugger off somewhere else. But hopefully it will just allow them to mature and go elsewhere. And again, whatever's happened in the garden, it is looking at why is there an imbalance. Well, the reason the wire worms are here is probably because of change of cultivation. And again, looking at the slugs, it's just an amphibian deficiency, isn't it? So another thing I'm planning to do is put some ponds around the place to draw in the amphibian life, to draw in the toads and the frogs. Plus, such a lovely thing to come down in the evening and hear the frogs and the toads around you. So I'm just going to show you our final bed in the garden, and then we'll go on to the next part of the land. So this bed here is what I call a kind of accidental bed, really, because what we've done when we moved all the delicious horse manure, we piled it all up here, and of course when we moved the manure then to the garden beds, this area was a fresh bed, so we decided to plant it up. And it's been interesting again to compare. I'm loving all the different areas to really compare what works well on this land. So this didn't have any borders and it was just fresh compost. Had a lot less slugs, did have slugs particularly towards the end, but had a lot less slugs. And to be honest, the weeds haven't been that much worse than in the areas with the wood chip. So this has been more of an experimental bed. The rainbow chard has been an absolute joy. Some of it's starting to go to seed now, and I'll see what that turns out like if I can save it. But plus, you know, it's called rainbow, what's not to love about that? But it's been lovely having that delicious chard, but also the amazing colours. And then we've got here, we've got the yacon. Now I absolutely love yacon, and I use that in a lot of the cakes that I produce and sell, and the chocolates. In fact, it's the main syrup that I use. So initially, we started with a few plants to build up the plants, because at the end of each year they'll give you freebie little plants. It's the plant that just keeps giving. And what we'll be doing then is we'll be planting up a huge bed, so hopefully we can be self-sufficient in yacon syrup. It roughly takes 2 plants to create around 250 ml of really reduced yacon syrup. So you're going to need a lot of plants, but to be honest, once they've got going, they pretty much get on with it. And then down this end of the bed, I've got some oca. So again, yacon and oca, both South American crops that grow really well here. And I'm going to be really experimenting with crops from around the place to see what we can get growing here. So not just sticking, to the potatoes, the carrots, the onions, really looking at what we can grow here and what superfoods are naturally in this environment, but what superfoods are in other parts of the world that grow here. Because I live a plant-based life, I want to try and get as much plant-based food growing here and really experiment with what we can make from that as well. So I've got some tree cabbage in the front, but back to oca. So oca has a very sorrel-like taste in the leaves, and then they grow a root which Chris, my partner, describes as, are they the ones that look a bit maggoty? So they look like a giant maggot, like a cross between a potato and a maggot. Not a great description, but they taste absolutely amazing. They taste like chips with vinegar already on it. So they are amazing. And the great thing is flavour improves after the frost. So they are like a great crop for after the potatoes are finished. So I'll harvest the yacon probably before the frost because I want to make use of the leaves. And I'll harvest the oca then just after. So that is the veg garden. So I'm now going to take you up to the top where we got the house and show you around the woodland. I lied. There was one other quick thing I wanted to mention to you before we leave the circle of life. So you might have noticed some trees growing around the edges you've been walking round with me. Well, we planted over 1,000 trees in this field, so there'll be a good shelter belt around the circle of life. But the one thing I'm really excited about, especially now those trees are coming up and it's creating a really good shelter belt in here, because the other day when we had winds, our beans and our corn survived, and I believe as a result of those trees. But here, this is where we are planning to put the polytunnels. We're going to have one down this side and one down that side. That side is going to be a forest garden polytunnel, and this side will be our just veg and fruit growing polytunnel. And then in between, I'm going to put something across the top to grow vines, things like kiwis and things like that. And it's something I'm really excited about. I've been wanting a polytunnel since I've been about 20, 21, 22. And I'm finally getting one now I'm 40. So I've waited a long time, and it is definitely going to be my Christmas present to myself to have a polytunnel. And I just love the idea of the season continuing. So I could not show you that. So yes, let's go on to the woodland and the house. So here it is, our house. We're not quite in there yet. We're going to be moving in the next month. Fingers crossed. Because it's habitable now. We've got the bedroom finished, the kitchen is finished, but we haven't got the units in. Chris has built them, but they're not in there yet. And the living room is done, but we're going to be moving in once the kitchen is done, which I'm so excited. We originally got a caravan 6 years ago, and for the winter, and we were going to stay with friends down the road in the Llamas Eco Village for that winter. Well, we ended up staying there 2 years. Until we got planning permission to do what we wanted to do here under the One Planet development policy. And well, we're going to be moving in. So 6 years, me and my partner Chris have lived in a touring caravan. I think it's 5 metres by 2.5 metres. So I feel we've pretty much done our time, and I'm really ready to move into the cabin. So we've built the cabin as eco as possible, but also balancing our finances, because we've done this project with not a lot of money. So we've got an ecological mortgage on it with the Ecology Building Society. We got a mortgage for the land, and then when we got planning permission, we remortgaged to build the house. So everything has been a balance of money and as ecological as possible. So all the wood is from a local woodland. We did look at using our own wood here, but the trees are quite small and not really up for it at the moment. So we went just down the road. So it's all local wood. And we built it as small as possible, because for us, our home is this. It's outside. We don't need much inside space. It's just for the winter. And eventually we're going to have decking out the front, so we can have an outdoor eating area. And I'm just so excited. I can't believe we're going to have a house after all this time. But I find it really funny when people come here because that's what they're mainly interested in. And whilst, yes, I'm really interested in that, to me, it's only such a small element. My partner, Chris, has done an absolutely amazing job. Never done any building before coming here, and he's turned into a builder. He's basically done 90% of that himself. We've had very little help. We had some help in the beginning from some amazing friends to help us get started. And then when Chris built the frames, what was such a delight is we had different groups of friends to help us literally lift our house up. So we literally lifted it all up. And the main thing for us, because it's classed as a low impact policy, one plant development, we didn't want the first thing to do to come in and dig the ground with all this machinery and have to build a massive house. We wanted it to sit gently in the landscape. So that is why we designed that house. So that is it. So where should we go next? Let's start going up into the woodlands, and then I'll show you some other elements of the way we live here at the moment. So I had to show you this. This is a really exciting development here recently. We have a shower. It comes straight from the well. So recently we've connected to our well, so we get all the water from our land. And while Chris was connecting it all up, he decided to create a very rustic shower. And my mum and her husband had donated a couple of years ago this amazing base, so we've now got a shower. So after 6 years of not having a shower, we've got a shower. It's quite cold, but we're starting to do that cold therapy, because part of living like this isn't just about the self-sufficiency thing. In fact, that's a very small element for us. It's about health. For us, it's about connection. So having a cold shower every morning and starting to breathe and get our breath in control is again part of the health journey. And it just feels so amazing to be able to do that from the water, from the land. So I come into here every morning, put the cold water on and squeal for a couple of seconds and then get my breathing under control. Very Wim Hof style. Right, let's carry on the tour. I love coming into this part of the woodlands. Always makes you stop and slow down and breathe in that delicious air from the evergreen spruce trees. So this part of our land is very different, and this is what I love about our land, all the different areas. So this is it's probably about 4 acres of conifer trees that we've got. And it was planted, it's probably about 14 years ago now, as a Christmas tree plantation, and very little was harvested. So we've been working in here, Chris has been working in here, we've had other people working in here, setting up different businesses. We had a great exchange going for a bit with a local tree surgeon that was coming in and working in here in exchange for teepee poles, because they make great teepee poles because they're so straight. And we are still continuing to thin it out. It's all been thinned out once now, so we're about to start thinking about the next stage. But even though everyone you talk to, there's a lot of negativity out there about spruce plantations, but do you know what? Seeing the wildlife that's in here is really amazing. And the birds of prey come in here to eat their catches, and all the nests we find in here. And as we're opening it up, seeing all the plants that come in, the amazing big ferns and the ivy, it's just bringing more and more wildlife in here. That's what I'm loving about living here, is just seeing how all the beings are just arriving. That standing stone I showed you in our front field, quite often in the daytime has a buzzard sat in it. And in the night time, you can also have an owl sat on it. The owl really likes, local barn owl really, really likes hunting in that front field. So it's just been an absolute delight seeing things come together. When we first came here, it was absolutely brimming with rabbits. But very sadly, the rabbits expanded to a point where they started using burrows they hadn't used before, and there must have been myxomatosis in those burrows, because very suddenly we spotted a few with myxi and they got wiped out. We've seen 1 or 2 rabbits over the last couple of years, but we've also seen polecats here, and we've seen foxes. Yeah, it's just seeing the wildlife just makes my heart sing. But the other thing is, on a human level, having this in the winter is an absolute saviour, to have the evergreens around me. And every time someone visits, they come into the woodlands and they they just know, they feel that healing vibe, that amazing, delicious conifer smell, that evergreen smell that just wakes you up and also grounds you and makes you feel still. So let me just show you the last few sections of our place. Off we go. So this is where we've been living for the last 6 years. We've actually been on site here, I think 3.5 years, but we lived somewhere else in the caravan before. So we feel like we've outlived this space, but it has been a dear, dear home to us. And this has been an amazing space. If any of you are doing a project like this, I really recommend, if you're living in a caravan, particularly in a wet place like it is here in West Wales, to build a porch. Chris built this porch. Our neighbour very kindly donated these pallets to us. They were pallets that solar panels were delivered on. And he then used the old shower cubicle, because we ripped the bathroom out in the caravan. That was the old shower cubicle, like kind of window thing. And he used that and created the porch, and it just creates a bit of a space for us to take our wellies off and our coats off, and it just has changed winter in the caravan, so that is absolutely amazing. And whilst I will miss it, it has been really, really difficult at times living 2 people in such a small space. There's one thing, you have to get over your shit and you have to work together, because that has been the best relationship counselling I have ever come across. In fact, I've thought about renting it out, throwing 2 people in there and making sure they work it out because there's no doors to slam. There's one space and all you've got is face to face with each other. But that has been our life, and if you had told me 7 years ago I'd be living in that, I would say no way. It is amazing how the human body adapts. It's amazing, you know, we've got no running water in there. We collect our water from the tap from the well. We've got no piping in there, so every time we wash the dishes, we bring it out and throw it somewhere different, so we don't not creating lots of moisture somewhere, and we always use ecological things to make sure that goes back to the earth in a healthy manner. The electricity we've got in there is solar panels, which I'll show you in a second. But for the first 2 years, we didn't have any electricity whatsoever in there at all. So we really started from ground zero and worked our way up. And the great thing about doing that is you realise how you can live, you really connect with what's around you, and also you realise and really appreciate when you do get the new things. You never ever take for granted turning on a tap and watching the water flow away. And I'm very excited about that in the new house, because when we move in, that's our aim, to be able to have a cold tap to turn on and to be able to pour the water down our sink into the drainage that we've created as a soak away. So let me show you our solar panel setup. So these are the solar panels, pretty much self-explanatory. At the moment we got 500 watts of solar panels. And to be honest, most of the year that allows us to have some light in the night, one light on, and charge our mobiles and our laptops, things like that. But it does get a bit tricky around winter solstice time, you know, that time until kind of spring equinox time. So we are going to be up in this when we move into the house, and obviously moving it all over, and we're planning on having 2 solar sets of panels, one pointing towards the direction of the winter sun and one pointing towards the direction of the summer sun. We have got an inverter in the caravan, so that means that we can plug regular things in. And in the summer we've got plenty of electricity. You know, I'm using my Nutri Ninja to make smoothies. There's all kinds of things that we can do, but it would be good to kind of sort out the winter electricity. And it does come down to the batteries as well, but all this stuff is very expensive, so it's about building it up slowly and also realising what we need and what we don't need. And last winter, because I was working from home and we had the internet put in, that's the one thing we are on the grid for. We've got the internet and we've got a telephone line. Because I work from home and I do consultations online and I do videos online, like you're watching one here, aren't you? And we needed to leave the internet on all the time, because we were noticing when we would turn it on and off, on and off, on and off, our speed was going lower and lower and lower, and I wasn't able to use it to do live video and consultations, that's how I earn my money. So we realised that we do need to up our solar panels, not just for that, but because in the winter, it's nice to be able to have lights and not have to have candles all winter. And yeah, sometimes it's just nice to have certain things. And, you know, it's not like we're going to be having a washing machine and tumble dryer all winter. We'll be having a washing machine. I'm very excited about that. But we'll probably just be able to use that in the summer. And we are going to be looking at other things. So we've got a stream down the one side of our land, as I said. And eventually we may look at getting some electricity from that. Possibly wind, I don't know. But as things are expanding, who knows? Because things are getting so much more powered towards, no pun intended, powered towards kind of off-grid living, and also not so much just off-grid as in you're not connected to the grid, but solar panels and alternative forms of electricity. So the price of things are coming down and the technology is expanding. So who knows how we'll be getting electricity in the future. So this has been my planting station all year. These are the scaffolding towers that we've been using to build our house. And I pinched them off Chris while he wasn't using them, and they've been an absolute delight because the slugs don't go up these metal bars. So to the point where I'm going to be using these and creating an area in the veg garden for our plants and our seedlings. So I had to show you this, and you can find out more about it. I've done a video all about growing, so if you check out the information below, if I remember, I'll put a link in, but you can also see that in my video sections. But this has been an absolute lifesaver to stop the slugs getting the seedlings. And the key I have found is been planting out the plants when they're really quite large and when they're quite strong, and the slugs don't tend to gravitate towards them as much. So that's why I want to get more of these, because at times I did have to plant things out when they weren't quite as big as I would have liked, and some of those did get eaten, as you heard about earlier. So I'm not bringing you too close and you'll be glad to know why. This is our toilet area. So at the moment it's very, very rustic, and we set it up really quickly with the intention of it being short term, but it's ended up being quite long term, and it looks like we're going to be doing another winter with it as well. So in here is literally a pot dug in the ground that we use compost bags in and a big stone on top. So it's a good squat toilet. You really get your bowels going in the right direction because of the squatting that you do. And we've just put the tarp around to stop the water getting in when we have that horizontal rain here in West Wales, which for a lot of the year. And then over there is the compost areas where we just empty when the bags are full and put them in there. And it's a really easy system. No smell, lots of fresh air. Plus, look at the view you've got when you have a poo. Who gets that view? So you may be wondering what we're doing with all this conifer plantation. Well, I said we're thinning it out quite a lot. And you can see it needs a lot more thinning out, but we can't do it too soon, because otherwise what will happen is when in the wind you really see how they support each other, and if you thin them out too quickly they won't be able to bounce off each other, and we get a lot of falling in the winds. So what we've been doing, well, we've been self-sufficient in our own wood for burning in the last 6 years. We've used it for some building projects. You might have seen that in the toilet I just showed you. But also, as we cut them down, we're starting to cultivate mushrooms. So I've done some research, and I've never done this before, so I have no idea how it's going to turn out. But Indian oysters and coral mushrooms grow on spruce. So what I've been doing, when we've been cutting down some trees, the good bits, I've been inoculating and waxing, and we shall see. So I'm going to be doing a lot more of that this year, because it'd be great if we had enough to be able to sell in the future. And plus, it gives a good use out of the spruce trees that are a bit too big for teepee poles, but they aren't big enough for big building projects. So yes, that's a project that's ongoing at the moment. So that takes us to the end of the tour. So we're back here by the house. I love these pallet steps that Chris built for us, but I also wanted to cover them with some colour, so I'm absolutely joyous with these nasturtiums that have crawled their way up there, and it really makes me smile every time I come out and see their dancing faces. So thank you for joining me on the tour. I hope you've enjoyed seeing behind the scenes of my life and where I live. I live here with Chris. It's just the two of us on the 10 acres of land, and yeah, that is me. So every week when I say to you that I'm Selena Walker and I'm a naturopath and I'm a nutritionist living deep in nature here at Ysbryd-y-Coed, you now know what Ysbryd-y-Coed is and how my life is. So I hope you've enjoyed having a bit of a nosy around. I know I would love that kind of thing. And I'll see you all soon. Have a delicious, delicious day. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you really enjoyed this. I'll be bringing in some more videos about my life because I've had so many questions recently. I didn't know how many of you were actually interested in it. So as people ask me more questions, I will do more videos. And if you want to find out more about the nutrition and naturopathic work that I do and want to just connect with me on a weekly basis, sign up to my newsletter, and you can do that over at my website, selinawalker.earth. Big love, and I'll see you all soon.